desperate allies before we dive in. Drop a hi in the comments. It seems small, but it helps YouTube share this story with more sci-fi fans like you, and I want to know who's watching. The war had ground on for years, turning proud worlds to dust and hope into ash. Commander Zextal of the Zaltharian Empire stood at the viewport of his flagship, Eternal Glory, and watched as the embers of his civilization burned their way through another sunrise. Once, his people had ruled over 50 worlds. Now, only 7 remained, each one battered, crowded with refugees, and threatened by the same endless storm. The Vorik swarmed out in the tactical pit below. Young Kefir, his loyal aide, spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. "We've lost contact with the Ninth Fleet, sir. That was the last of our major defense lines. Only 2 more planets have been evacuated this week. The others," Kefir's face sagged with exhaustion. "We didn't get everyone out in time." Zextal nodded and looked away, unable to meet the young officer's gaze. It was always the same loss, then more loss. Zaltharian fleets, built for precise strikes and honorable war, were simply no match for the brute force and mindless hunger of the Vorik. The swarm moved like a galactic plague, a tide of living ships that consumed all in their path and left only silence in their wake. The council called for more meetings, as if strategies hadn't already been exhausted. The high counselors, politicians in gilded robes, argued about honor and traditions while the enemy circled ever closer. Zextal found himself drawn to the old survey records, the desperate hope that somewhere, on some primitive rim world, there might be help, or at least something new. He scrolled through ancient files. Most planets at the edge were barren, their life forms primitive. Then he paused at one report, Earth. Its inhabitants were only just spacefaring, yet the survey teams had recorded something unique. Human conflicts were brutal, unpredictable, and wildly inventive. Unlike the Zaltharians, humans showed no respect for the rules of war. They used deception, ambush, sabotage, sometimes even when it seemed self-defeating. The notes were filled with awe and unease. One phrase recurred: "They do not surrender." When cornered, they become more dangerous, not less. Zexal's 4 hands trembled as he turned to Kefir. "Prepare a long-range array. We're sending a message to Earth." Kefir looked stunned, but they're barely beyond their own star system. What could they possibly do? Zextal met his gaze, eyes hollow but burning. "Conventional warfare has failed us. Maybe it's time we tried something different. Sometimes, to fight monsters, you need to call for bigger monsters." The message took days to reach Sol. It was blunt and desperate. The Zaltharian Empire is falling to the Vorik swarm. We offer you technology, knowledge, and alliance if you will help us survive. Please respond on Earth at a United Earth Defense. Command Outpost. Admiral Ethan Morgan read the translation 3 times before looking up. Are we seriously being asked to save an alien empire? He muttered. Communications officer Betty Stone watched the playback of the Zaltharians' priest blue-skinned, multi-armed, regal, and worn thin by war. It's real, Admiral, and it's urgent. Captain Riadas, a rising star in xenobiology, and First Contact Protocol, leaned in. It's not just a call for help, sir. They're willing to give us technology we could only dream of, Morgan called Earth Command. The debate was fierce. Should humanity risk its only fleet in a war, halfway across the galaxy, or keep building quietly, safe and isolated? General Lincarter's voice was the loudest. If you take our fleet, Admiral, you might be leading us into a trap or into a place we can't ever come back from. Morgan looked at his own crew, hardened by hard-won peace. Prepare the fleet for long-range jump, he said quietly. The galaxy called for backup. Let's show them what real beasts look like. Within a week, 50 human warships crewed compared to alien standards, but deadly in ways no one could imagine, launched for the stars. The last stand humanity arrives when the human fleet emerged from hyperspace. The Zaltharian stronghold, Kith Moria, was barely holding together. The once beautiful station was scarred and pitted, with entire sections dark from previous attacks. Hundreds of alien ships orbited in ragged formations. On the bridge of the flagship, Admiral Morgan stood beside Ken Das and watched the sensor. Feeds. We're being scanned, Das reported. Their comms are skeptical. Some of them are actually laughing at us. Morgan's lips twitched. Let's give them a reason to pay attention. Within hours, human envoys were shuttled aboard the station. Lieutenant Commander Nick Hayes led the diplomatic team, accompanied by Chief Engineer Mia Brooks and Marine Colonel Steve Parker. The station's halls were crowded with Zaltharian refugees tall, blue-skinned beings who glanced at the humans with mingled hope and doubt. Commander Zextel greeted them in the council chamber, surrounded by exhausted staff. His translator device hummed. You are smaller than I expected, he said, 4 hands folded. But perhaps size isn't everything. Parker's grin was sharp. Where we come from, it's not the size that counts, Commander. They were quickly briefed on the war. Kethfer ran tactical feeds, showing the Zaltharian fleet in precise, geometric formations. Every battle is a matter of honor and discipline, he explained. We fight in coordinated patterns. The Vorik, however, swarm in chaos. They throw ships away by the hundreds, but we cannot match their numbers. Brooks studied the fleet reports, her engineer's mind already racing. Your tech is advanced, but your ships break easy. Our weapons are designed for one thing ending fights fast. Parker's eyes narrowed as he watched battle footage. The Zaltharians were elegant but predictable, while the Vorik crashed in. Waves, losing ships without pause, always adapting. You're fighting a gentleman's war. The Vorik are fighting to win. Morgan spoke up. Let us observe your next battle. After that, maybe we can show you a different way. The Vorik attack 2 days later. On the command deck, the Zaltharians formed up in beautiful, deadly patterns. The humans watched in silence as energy beams cut through the swarm, but for every Vorik ship destroyed, 2 more took its place. The defenders lost 8 ships and claimed victory. But at what cost? Hayes muttered. They're bleeding themselves dry. That night, in their quarters, the human team met to plan. Their weapons are better, but their tactics are stuck in the past, Brooks said. The Vorik adapt to everything except the unexpected. Parker cracked his knuckles. They called for backup. Let's give them the real beasts. When the beasts awakened, the next attack began at dawn. Station time. As the Vorik swarm closed in, the human ships broke formation, spreading out in seemingly random positions across the battle space. Zaltharian officers stared at their screens in confusion. They're scattered, Kethfer said, bewildered. This is chaos. Parker's voice crackled over the comm. This is how we fight. From the Bridge of Defiance, Admiral Morgan directed his fleet in a dance of feints, ambushes, and sudden reversals. Instead of waiting for the Vorik to crash into them, the humans set traps mines hidden in wreckage, decoy ships broadcasting false signals, fighter wings harassing the edges of the swarm, herding them into kill zones. On the ground, human marines landed on the Vorik-infested moon, using camouflage, explosives, and sabotage to disrupt the enemy supply lines. Zaltharian observers watched in shock as humans crept through tunnels and vents, turning the enemy's own breeding grounds into death traps. The Vorik were caught off guard. Their swarms, so effective against rigid tactics, faltered when faced with unpredictability. They tried to adapt, but every time they did, the humans changed their methods, ambushing, flanking, even feigning retreat to lure the swarm into crossfire. Brooks coordinated ship repairs mid-battle, patching hulls with scrap, and even weaponizing broken reactors as traps. Hayes used hacked enemy comms to sow confusion in the Vorik ranks. DASs. Science teams analyzed captured bioweapons, engineering countermeasures on the fly. For the first time, the Vorik fell back. The Zaltharian fleet, at first hesitant, began to mimic some human tactics, breaking formation, launching sudden assaults, even using surprise for the first time in centuries. When the last enemy ships retreated, the command deck erupted in cheers. Zextel stared at the battle report. How did you do that? Morgan smiled. We fought like our ancestors, like beasts. For the first time in years, the Vorik swarm bled. The turning point news of the human victory spread like wildfire. Zaltharian commanders who'd once scoffed now wanted to learn from the humans. Training sessions began: how to improvise, how to exploit enemy weaknesses, how to win dirty if you must. Not all council members were pleased. Some, horrified by the brutality, called for investigations. This is not how honorable species wage war, declared Councillor Arvan, a member of the Galactic governing body. They're monsters, not heroes. But the survivors knew the truth. They had seen hope where before there was only defeat. The Vorik, furious and wounded, returned. In force. This time, their attack dwarfed all previous efforts, a full swarm, millions strong, with new strategies copied from the humans themselves. The Zaltharian human alliance was all that stood between civilization and oblivion. Morgan and Zextal coordinated their fleets, mixing Zaltharian discipline with human chaos. Human marines and alien warriors fought side by side, sharing tricks, covering each other's flanks, improvising and adapting in real time. Brooks and Dast led engineering teams in frantic improvisation, turning mining drones into automated gun turrets, using shield generators as portable barricades. Hayes ran interference, feeding false intel to the Vorik, sowing chaos in their command. Structure. The battle raged for hours. Ships died by the thousands. Victory seemed impossible, until Parker led a desperate boarding action onto the Vorik queenship, fighting through horrors that defied imagination. At the heart of the swarm, he detonated a warhead made from scavenged Zaltharian and human Tekka, weapon born from unity and desperation. The explosion shattered the Queen's control. The swarm broke, leaderless and lost. The field went silent. The Alliance had won, but at terrible cost. A galaxy changed forever in the aftermath. The Zaltharians were no longer the same. Their culture, so rigid for millennia, was now full of questions, hungry for new ideas. Survivors spoke in hushed tones about what they'd learned from humanity, the value of improvisation, the power of determination, the importance of never giving up. Council dignitaries met in urgent session. Some feared what humanity might do next, now that their strength was undeniable. Others invited Earth to join new alliances, to help rebuild what the swarm had destroyed. For Morgan, Parker, Das, Hayes, and Brooks, the price had been high. They attended memorials for lost friends, both human and Zaltharian. But as they sat together at a quiet meal, sharing stories with their alien comrades, a new sense of belonging filled the room. Zextal raised his glass. "To beasts," he said, smiling in a way his people never had before. "May we never forget what it means to fight for something worth saving." Morgan clinked his mug. "To allies, and to the monsters we all carry inside. Let's hope we use them for good." The stars outside shimmered with possibilities. Humanity's legend had begun as a last desperate hope. Now, it was a warning and a promise to every corner of the galaxy. When real beasts show up, you better be ready to change or be left behind.